The baby was blue. Not the peaceful blue of summer skies or tranquil oceans, but the terrifying blue of something dying. Razor found it at 3:17 in the morning when he stumbled out of Hades' tavern to take a leak behind the dumpster. The cardboard box sat on the weathered doorstep like a package from hell itself. Inside the box, wrapped in a stained towel with cord still attached, was a newborn making sounds that did not belong to the living world. Wet, rattling gasps, the color of spoiled meat. Razor, whose legal name was Marcus Webb, and whose rap sheet included aggravated assault and weapons charges, did not hesitate. He scooped up the box and kicked the bar door so hard it flew off one hinge. "What the fuck, Razor?" the bartender started to say before the words died in his throat. The baby was not breathing right. Within seconds, the bar exploded into motion. Tank, a man who once broke someone's jaw for looking at his bike wrong, grabbed the towel and started rubbing the infant's chest with shocking gentleness. Priest, who had 12 years of Catholic school before the Marines hollered for someone to call 911, wrenched the club's mechanic with more metal in his face than teeth in his mouth, cleared the pool table with one sweep of his tattooed arm. They laid the baby down under the buzzing Budweiser sign. No one called 911 because calling the cops meant questions. Questions meant investigations. Investigations meant prison time for half the men in that room. The Iron Skull's MC did not have a relationship with law enforcement that involved cooperation. "Someone get Doc," the president of the chapter barked. His name was Cyrus King, but no one had called him that since 1993. To everyone in a 200-mile radius, he was simply King, and what King said was law among the Iron Skulls. Doc's real name was Lawrence Finch, and he had been a combat medic in Desert Storm before a dishonorable discharge erased that life. He lived above the bar in a room that smelled like bourbon and old regret. He appeared on the stairs in boxer shorts and a metallic shirt, blinking at the scene below. The baby gasped again, a horrible, wet sound. Doc moved fast for a man pushing 60. His hands, expert and steady, went to work. He cleared the mouth, checked the airways, felt for a pulse at the tiny neck. The room was silent except for the jukebox playing Skinnard and someone quietly sobbing by the dartboard. "This kid is maybe 3 hours old," Doc said finally. Cord was cut with something dirty. "Probably hypothermic. Definitely in shock." The baby's eyes opened for just a moment. Dark eyes that did not focus on anything. Then they closed again. "Will it make it?" someone asked. Doc looked up at King. "It needs a hospital. Now." King stood there, a mountain of a man in leather and denim with a beard like steel wool and eyes that had seen men die in a dozen different ways. He looked at the baby. He looked at his brothers. 23 men, all wearing the same patch on their backs, the Iron Skull with roses growing through the ice. Men who had done time. Men with blood on their hands. Men who lived outside the law because the law had abandoned them first. "We take it to the hospital. They'll ask questions," King said slowly. "Cops get involved. They'll want to know where we found it. They'll tear this place apart. So we let it die," Tank said. It was not a question. It was the testing of a boundary. King stared at the baby. Its tiny fingers curled into fists. The color was coming back slowly, from blue to purple to something almost human. "Get your bikes," he said. "We ride." "What about the cops?" Priest asked. King picked up the box with the baby inside with the same care a man might hold nitroglycerin. "We tell them the truth. Someone left a baby at our door. We brought it in. That's all they need to know. But the rest," Wrench started. "The rest stays between us," King said. His voice was iron. "No one talks about what's in the basement. No one talks about last week's run. No one talks about anything except a baby on a doorstep. Understand?" They understood. 6 Harleys roared to life outside Hades' Tavern at 3:32 in the morning. King rode with a box strapped against his chest inside his leather jacket, the baby's head pressed against his heartbeat. The ride to County General took 14 minutes through empty streets under sodium lights that painted everything the color of old bruises. They pulled into the emergency bay like the 4 horsemen plus 2. The nurse at Intake, a woman with iron gray hair and eyes that had seen every kind of human damage, took one look at the baby and hit the code button. Within 30 seconds, a doctor appeared. Within 2 minutes, the baby was gone through double doors into a world of bright lights and sterile equipment. The motorbike stood in a semicircle outside the entrance. Emergency lights painted their chrome in alternating red and white. A cop arrived, then another... Then a detective with a cheap suit and expensive problems written on his face. His name was Detective Morrison, and he knew King from previous encounters, none of them pleasant. "You want to tell me what happened?" Morrison said, lighting a cigarette, even though they were standing under a no-smoking sign. King Gitoli baby on a doorstep. "Box, cold, blue. They brought it here." "Just like that," Morrison said. The Iron Skull suddenly playing Good Samaritan. "The baby was dying," King said. What would you have done? Morrison did not have an answer for that. He looked at the 6 bikers standing in formation like soldiers, hard men with hard faces, men who probably had warrants, men who definitely had secrets, but tonight they had saved a life. You're going to need to stick around, Morrison said. Social services will want statements. They stayed. Dawn came slowly, painting the sky the color of old blood. The bikers sat on the curb, drinking vending machine coffee that tasted like hot regret. They did not talk much. Men like them did not process emotion through conversation. They sat with it, they carried it, they buried it under layers of leather and chrome and the constant rumble of engines. A social worker appeared around 7. Her name was Angela Chun, and she looked young enough to be in college. She carried a clipboard like a shield and wore the kind of practiced empathy that came from a textbook. The baby is stable, she said. Boy, approximately 4 hours old. Severe hypothermia, but responding to treatment. He saved his life. Where does he go now? Doc asked. Into the system, she said. Foster care. We'll try to find the mother, but in cases like this, that's usually not possible. What happens if you don't find anyone, Tank said? Then he becomes a ward of the state. We'll find him a placement, a good home, hopefully. Hopefully, Priest repeated. The word hung in the air like smoke. The bikers left the hospital as the sun climbed higher. They rode back to Hades' Tavern in silence, each man alone with thoughts they would not share. The bar was a crime scene now. Police tape across the door. Crime scene techs taking photographs of the spot where they had found the box. King made a call. Within an hour, a lawyer arrived, a man named Saul Bernstein, who specialized in cases where the law met the lawless. They talked in the parking lot. Money changed hands. Promises were made. The police tape came down by noon. That should have been the end of it. It was not. 3 days later, King walked into County Hospital alone. He wore jeans instead of leathers and a button-down shirt that fit awkwardly across his shoulders. He found Angela Chun in an office that smelled like old coffee and institutional despair. I want to know about the boy, King said. Angela looked up surprised. Mr. King, I cannot discuss the child's case with you. Privacy laws? King sat down, uninvited. The chair creaked under his weight. His name is Baby Doe right now. No mother, no father, no family. That's correct. And he's going into foster care when he's medically cleared, yes. King leaned forward. What if there was another option? Angela's professional mask slipped for just a moment, revealing something like hope underneath. What kind of option? What followed was not simple. Nothing involving the system ever was. Background checks, home studies, financial disclosures. King had a record, but no violent felonies. He had income from the bar that was mostly legitimate. He had a house outside town with 2 bedrooms and a yard. But he was also the president of an outlaw motorcycle club. It took 6 weeks. 6 weeks of meetings and evaluations and interviews with social workers who looked at King like he was a puzzle that did not fit any template. 6 weeks of the Iron Skulls cleaning up their act. The drug corner in the back room disappeared. The stolen parts operation moved elsewhere. Hades Tavern became shockingly legal almost overnight. Angela fought for it. She saw something in King that her colleagues did not. Maybe it was the way he showed up to every meeting early. Maybe it was how he took parenting classes at the community center sitting among teenage mothers and looking completely out of place but absolutely committed. Maybe it was simpler than that. Maybe she just believed that people could change. On a Tuesday in October, King walked into County Hospital and walked out with a baby. They named him Milo. Not because of any family history or meaningful tradition, but because Tank said it was a good, strong name and no one disagreed. Milo King, 8 pounds, brown eyes, a cry that could wake the dead. The Iron Skulls became uncles overnight. Tank, who had done 3 years in Pelican Bay for assault, taught Milo to sleep by riding him around the block on his motorcycle. The vibration knocked the kid out in minutes. Priest, who had not been to church since his sister's funeral, started going again on Sundays with Milo in a carrier strapped to his chest. Wrench built a crib out of chrome and steel that looked like something from a post-apocalyptic nursery, but was probably the safest crib ever constructed. Doc became the de facto pediatrician. He read books, he watched YouTube videos, he argued with actual doctors about vaccination schedules and developmental milestones. The combat medic became a surprisingly neurotic parent by proxy. The women came next. Rita was Razor's sister, a nurse at County General, who had not spoken to her brother in 5 years. She showed up one day, took one look at how King was trying to make formula, and took over. She brought friends. Sarah was a teacher. Ginny worked at the hardware store. Alicia rode her own bike and could drink any man under the table. Suddenly, Hades Tavern was not just a bar. It was a community center There were diapers in the bathroom, formula in the fridge next to the beer, a playpen in the corner where Milo would sleep during club meetings while grown men discussed business in whispers. The first year was chaos. Milo got sick in December. A fever that sent them to the emergency room at 2 in the morning. 6 bikers in the waiting room looking terrified while nurses rushed in and out. It was just a virus, kids get 'em. But King aged a decade in those 4 hours. Milo started crawling in May. The bar became a death trap. Sharp corners, electrical outlets, pool cues, glass everywhere. They baby-proofed the entire building. Tank installed foam on every edge. Priest got down on his hands and knees and looked at the world from Milo's height, identifying every possible hazard. Milo said his first word in August. It was not Dada or Mama, it was Tank. The big man who had saved his life that first night by rubbing his chest while he struggled to breathe. Tank cried. No one mentioned it. The second year was transformation. Milo started walking, then running, then climbing everything. He was fearless in the way children are fearless because they do not yet understand that the world can hurt them. The Iron Skulls understood that all too well. They watched him constantly. A dozen pairs of eyes tracking every movement. King learned to braid hair after Milo went through a phase of wanting long hair like Priest. He learned to make pancakes shaped like motorcycles. He learned that you cannot negotiate with a 2-year-old, and sometimes you just have to accept that dinner will be chicken nuggets again. The club changed too. They had to. A bar full of bikers was no place for a kid, so they adapted. Club meetings moved to later hours. Business was conducted away from Hades. The violence that had always been part of the life became something they actively avoided because they had someone to come home to. Not everyone understood. Other clubs thought the Iron Skulls had gone soft. A few tried to test that theory. They learned quickly that going soft about violence and going hard about protection were 2 sides of the same coin. When a rival club showed up looking for trouble, they found 23 men who fought with something beyond anger. They fought with purpose. Because 15 feet away inside the bar, a 3-year-old was coloring with crayons and watching cartoons. Morrison, the detective, kept an eye on things. He expected the arrangement to fail, expected King to screw up, expected the baby to end up back in the system. But weeks turned to months, turned to years, and Milo thrived. Morrison started bringing his own kids by the bar on weekends. They played with Milo in the yard while adults drank coffee and talked about property taxes and school districts. The world did not make sense anymore. But maybe that was okay. By year 3, Milo was a full person with opinions and preferences and a personality that was somehow both King's stubbornness and Doc's careful attention and Tank's gentle giant energy all mixed together. He loved motorcycles. He loved books. He loved making everyone in the bar laugh by doing impressions of them. He did not know he was different from other kids. To him, this was normal. A dad who wore leather and had a beard like a Viking. Uncles who were covered in tattoos and scars. A bar that was a home. A family that was chosen, not born. Angela Chun came by sometimes to check in. The official visits had ended after year 1. Now, she just came because she wanted to see how he was doing. Every time she looked around the bar at the tough men being gentle at the family that had formed from nothing, she felt something she had stopped letting herself feel in her line of work. Hope, on Milo's 4th birthday, they had a party at the bar. Cake, shaped like a motorcycle. Presents wrapped in newspaper and duct tape because bikers were not good at wrapping presents. 23 men singing happy birthday off-key while a little boy with chocolate frosting on his face grinned like he had won the lottery. King looked around the room at his brothers. Men he had fought beside. Men he had bled with. Men who had followed him into hell more than once. And now they were all here singing to a kid who had arrived in a box on a doorstep 4 years ago. Tank caught his eye. The big man nodded. No words needed. They both knew what this was. Redemption. Not the kind that came from a church or a courtroom. Not the kind that erased the past. But the kind that said maybe the past did not have to define the future. Maybe men who had done terrible things could also do something beautiful. Maybe family was not about blood or law, but about choice. About showing up. About love that looked rough and sounded loud, but was real all the same. Milo ran over and crashed into King's legs, wrapping small arms around Dinham. Dad looked Tank, got me a toy bike. King picked him up. The kid was getting big. Soon he would be too big to carry. Soon he would be in school. Soon he would have questions about where he came from and why his family looked different from everyone else's. But that was future stuff. Right now in this moment, King held his son and felt something he had not felt in 20 years of hard living. Peace. The jukebox played. The beer flowed. The Iron Skulls celebrated. And in the middle of Hades' tavern, in a bar that had seen every kind of sin, a little boy laughed and a room full of dangerous men smiled. Outside the sunset, painting the sky in shades of orange and red, motorcycles lined up in perfect formation glinted in the dying light. The Iron Skull patch with roses through the eyes had taken on new meaning. Where there had been death, there was now life. Where there had been endings, there were beginnings. Milo fell asleep against King's chest before the party ended. Small, steady breathing. Total trust. King carried him up to the apartment and laid him in the chrome crib that Wrench had built. He stood there watching the kid sleep and thinking about that night 4 years ago. The blue baby, the impossible choice. The moment everything changed, Doc appeared in the doorway. "You did good, King." "We did good," King corrected. "All of us." Doc nodded. "You ever wonder who left him?" "Every day. But it does not matter now. He's ours. What are you going to tell him when he's old enough to ask?" King looked down at Milo. The truth that his mother left him on a doorstep, that a bunch of criminals found him, that they chose to be his family, because sometimes family is not about who you're born to, but who shows up when you need the most. "Think he'll understand." King smiled. "He's being raised by bikers. He'll understand things most kids never will. Like loyalty, like brotherhood, like how sometimes the scariest looking people have the biggest hearts." Doc left. King stayed watching Milo sleep until his own eyes grew heavy. Tomorrow there would be diapers to change and meals to make and 100 small tasks that made up the life of a parent. Tomorrow, the Iron Skulls would ride, and Milo would wave from the doorway of Hades' Tavern, watching his family disappear into the horizon. But they would come back. They always came back, because the most dangerous thing they had ever done was not any crime or fight or run. It was opening their hearts to a baby in a box. It was choosing to be better. It was deciding that love was worth the risk. That was the real story. Not about how a baby was abandoned, but about how a baby was found. About how the unwanted became the most wanted. About how a crying infant turned the deadliest biker gang in the state into something new. A family.